Hello everybody, Austin Hill Shaw here, founder of Creativity Matters and author of The Shoreline of Wonder on Being Creative. Today we're going to have the 10th and final episode, at least for now, of Creativity and Bay Area Innovation. Creativity and Bay Area Innovation. And I hope you enjoyed the journey as much as I have, just to go in and really kind of explore why the Bay Area is such a creative place and why there's been so much prolific outpourings of innovations and technology and creativity and art and ways of relating with one another. It's a magical place to be. And today we just have to talk about the Burning Man Festival. The Burning Man Festival is a festival that originally started in San Francisco at Baker Beach in the mid-'80s and has since moved to a place called Black Rock City, which is a temporary city out in the desert, about 90 miles north of Reno, Nevada. And it's an incredibly inhospitable place to be. It's basically a entirely flat lake, Pleistocene lake bed, basically a lake that was there that dried up many thousands of years ago. And what you're left with is just this desert, this desert that's again flat. It has a lot of dust, the high alkaline content. And anyways, basically every year in the week leading up to Labor Day weekend and through that weekend, there's a festival that takes place there where people from all over the world gather. And they build a temporary city with an effigy of a man in the middle. In the center of this, there's a city, and then the layout of the city itself is almost like a clock. It moves from 2 o'clock to 10 o'clock with radials and streets and also concentric circles, and has this incredible layout. So everything is oriented around this burning effigy of the man. And the whole idea about Burning Man is this idea of impermanence and transformation. That again, there's an effigy of a man, and on Saturday night, again over Labor Day weekend, every year this effigy of a man is burned. And not only is the effigy of a man burned, but there's other artworks that have been created over a long periods of time with a lot of hard work have been burned as well. And so it's an incredible outpouring of creativity, but the other aspect of it is a lot of the things that are created are also destroyed, which really kind of talks about the cycle, the cycle of arising, abiding, and ceasing, which is a natural part of being a human being, about being a creator, and about creativity in general. Everything that's been born is destined to die. Everything that's been born is destined to die at some point. And it's interesting to have this festival that's all around, that celebrates that. You may have heard things about Burning Man before. You may have been to Burning Man before. And for those who have been there, know that it's unlike any other experience that you'll probably ever have in your entire life. I mean, the incredible outpouring of creativity, not only in art installations, they have art cars, they have theme camps, and even the clothing that people are wearing. It's an exercise in self-expression. Really, people seeing what's meaningful to them, and then gathering other people around to help them and building crazy, amazing art installations that can be interactive, they can be moving. There's so much there. So I encourage you to go to Burning Man if ever you can, if you ever had the opportunity, if you haven't been before. It's an amazing place. But what I want to focus on today is really understanding why it is so impactful, why so many people have been drawn to this festival called Burning Man. What is the why behind Burning Man? And for me, it comes down to the idea of the primordial ground of creativity. As I just said a moment ago, that everything that is born is destined to die. Everything that is born is destined to die. And yet everything arises from something, right? All these things that do arise, they arise from something. And I like to think about that as the primordial ground of creativity, the primordial ground of creativity. And if you've read The Shoreline of Wonder, or if you've listened to some other of my talks, I really distinguish between three different types of creativity. That there's the ground of creativity, right? There's the path of creativity, and then there's fruitional creativity. And the ground of creativity really talks about all the things, all the elements that have been in place long before even humans were on the scene, that has transformed our universe from a singularity, right, during the Big Bang, to this incredible expression of human beings and life and galaxies and solar systems and planets, and just, it's incredible, the diversity and beauty of expression. And so when we think about that, again, going back down to the ground of creativity, it's like, well, what are the things that are driving all that? Well, there's three things. For me, to understand what the ground is, it consists of basically dynamism, or you could say impermanence. Everything is always changing, right? Everything is always changing. And the second is interdependence. Everything is changing in relationship to something else, right? Nothing changes in a vacuum. All these changes are always happening in sort of ecosystems, from localized ecosystems up into the ecosystems of the entire universe, okay? Big and small. And in the middle of that is mystery and uncertainty. We don't know how things are going to change in relationship to them and what's going to arise. In science, they call this complexity, right? In the middle of different systems, you can't always predict what's going to arise out of that. And I think that's the magic of creativity. And somehow, this flat desert, right? This flat desert that, again, that nothing really grows on or lives in high alkaline content, it's just this primordial ground. I mean, even though it's in the world, it symbolically represents this primordial ground out of which things arise, okay? Now, once things arise out of that primordial ground, there's different ways in which we can perceive them. And this brings us back to a kind of a teaching, an old teaching from Buddhist Tantra. And I actually made a helmet one year for Burning Man in order to illustrate what I want to talk about here, okay? And that's the idea of co-emergence, that out of this primordial ground, there's basically two things that you can arise. One is confusion, okay? This is the side that represents confusion. And you can see that I took an army helmet, cut it up into pieces, and then took parts from an old VCR and made this. I actually made this while I was living at the Buddhist Retreat Center in 2006. But this side represents confusion. This represents confusion. It's basically the way our mind works in a habitual way, often out of fear, just to carry out pre-programmed things from before. In other words, it's not very creative. It's very habitual. And so these gears in here represent that habitual machine-like way that we work as human beings, which, from my opinion, is not the greatest way to live your life. If your life has become something like an assembly line, you might want to think about doing things differently, okay? On the other side of this, we have what's called wisdom, okay? And the wisdom mind is basically responsive to the world around it. The wisdom mind, it looks out at the world and it doesn't interpret it based on the way it interpreted just moments before. It sees things as fresh. It's open to possibilities. And symbolically, what I have here is like I have a magnifying glass, a flower on the inside, and I often just hang something up here. I put different things on here. This happens to be Padmasambhava, who's known as Guru Rinpoche in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition. He's the head of the Nyingma tradition, and he represents this full display of sensuality, joy, appreciation, but also cutting awareness. And so the idea about the primordial ground is that, again, confusion and wisdom are arising simultaneously in every moment. Confusion and wisdom are arising simultaneously in every moment. And in every moment, we have the opportunity to choose. We have the opportunity to choose how we're going to show up. Are we going to show up from a place where we feel, again, we're just like carrying out this sort of pre-handed down notions from before, or how we've lived before, okay, kind of a fear base? Or are we going to choose to show up in a way that makes us, that we're sort of engaging with the world more openly, more directly, with an open heart, with curiosity, with wonder. And I know the thing about Burning Man, since it is such a primordial ground, is that people have incredible experiences like that. They either relate to it in a way like, this place is just weird, it's toxic, I don't like it, it's too much chaos, I feel dirty. And other people are like, wow, there is so much stuff happening here that's amazing. And people might cycle through those experiences throughout the week they're there, right? They might go through a whole series of like, this place is amazing, and then I'll be like, I hate this place. This is just too much. I'm overwhelmed, right? But it's always, again, out of this primordial ground are these intense experiences that can be artistic based, that can be have to do with dancing, with the interactions with other people, so many different opportunities to connect with one another. And out of that, again, people choose. They're choosing the way that they're experiencing that external, that very stimulating external environment. So, and I've had both of those experiences. I've been times there where it's like I went in there. I remember originally, it's like I felt so, it was almost overwhelming to me. I couldn't believe all the different people and the bikes and the art. And as an introvert, I kind of shut down, right? I felt myself shutting down, and then I'd have to do things in order to figure out how to connect. One year I was doing this, and I basically went to this thing called the human car wash, where everybody was naked and you got basically in a line, two pair of lines, and you got to the front of the line, and then you had all these strangers just washing you off, washing off that dust. I know that sounds probably strange and weird to people, but it was actually really quite wonderful just to have people that you had no idea helping you get clean. It was actually a very traditional way of working with people. That's how they used to do it in the past. So, and the other thing for me, perhaps most significantly, is that in 2008, I met my wife there. I met my wife at around 3 or 4 in the morning, dancing across the dance pit. We just basically came up to one another and kissed before we even knew one another's name. And next day she said, "You're the one. You're the one." And now we have an amazing 6-year-old named Sierra Lucia and an amazing 2.5-year-old named Lorenza Del Mar. And this thing, which to many people might just seem like a gigantic party, just like, how to say, revelry, what's the point of that? It's not productive. It's a primordial ground. It's a sacred space. And out of that, for my life, it's transformed everything, right? Me as a father, me as a husband, me having these 2 kids, just me have this amazing wife. It's been one of the greatest gifts of my life, just to have gone to this festival and having this life been given to me. So I encourage you to understand and start to look at in your own life how a primordial ground may or may not be showing up. What are ways in which you step outside of your need to constantly produce things or work or get things done, either being in a state of boredom and overwhelm? And what do you do just so that you can actually just be, so you can just allow yourself to be? One of the great things about Burning Man is that cell phones, at least in the past, have not worked out there. And so those devices that now keep us so occupied they're gone. And you have to find other ways of getting in touch with people, making plans fall through, and just going with the flow out there. Which is such a fun lesson in and of itself. But in your own life, I encourage you to think about what can you do, either as a pilgrimage or a retreat, or a way in which you can actually step back from your life. As so many people, like this year, 50-some thousand people went there, chose to make this journey to this very dusty, inhospitable place, just so they can disconnect from other aspects of their lives, and so that they can get this step into that primordial ground and feel the surge of creativity and connection with their fellow human beings. It's really a remarkable thing. So for you, again, what are some of the ways in which you can step outside of the way you normally are, outside of your comfort zone on some levels, but also outside of your need to get things done, right? Your need to work and constantly on. What can you do? Maybe you have something like that you do already. Maybe it's an annual fishing trip, right? Maybe it's a family reunion of sorts where you kind of stop working on your business, and then you go meet with your extended family. All those things. Maybe for me, another thing that I do, I go up to the mountains every year, and I go to the altitude, and of course my phone doesn't work up there, and I just practice being. I practice being. Sometimes I'm there by myself, sometimes I'm there with my best friend William, but we just get a chance to just be and feel the primordial ground of dynamism, interdependence, and mystery rolling through us, just penetrating us, okay? And to me, that's the secret behind Burning Man. I also encourage you to read the article below, because I saw the founder of Burning Man speak. His name's Larry Harvey. And the way that he looks at Burning Man and the experience that he had in the first burn is really interesting. And I think that'll give you further insights into how Burning Man is really a sacred place. It's a really place of pilgrimage. Beyond just a party, it's a sacred celebration. A sacred celebration of creativity. Okay? So I encourage you to write things that you've done in your life in order to celebrate your creativity, either by yourself or with other people. Let us know that events have gone to that have been impactful in your life. And please share this with others. If you feel inclined, please share this information with others. I'd love to get that out to people, okay? So once again, this has been Austin Hill Shaw, founder of Creativity Matters and author of The Shoreline of Wonder on Being Creative, reminding you to connect deeply, to make a difference, and to inspire creativity in others. Thank you so much for joining me.